This is Paul Brower. He was born November 12, 1949. He was in active service during Vietnam and Desert Storm. His highest rank achieved was Master Sergeant. Today is May 25th, and we are in Caledonia, Michigan. And I'm Maddie Wilson, and in relation to him, he's my grandpa. And this interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Okay, now, early life questions. Where and when were you born?
Grand Rapids, Michigan, November 11th, 1949.
Now, along the lines of your family, where or what did your parents do for jobs at this time?
My father was a master plumber and carpenter, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and we lived on a farm.
You did?
Yes.
Did you raise cows?
We did.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
I had 3 siblings, 2 sisters and a brother. My oldest sister passed away at the age of 8 from kidney failure. They didn't have a cure for the kidney disease at that time. There was nothing they could do. And I did not know her. She passed away just before I was born.
So, did any of your other siblings enter the war?
No, they did not.
Did any of your family members that you know?
No.
You were the only one?
Unless you want to go back to my uncle who was in World War II. That's the only other family member that was in the service.
What was happening in the world during this period of time?
When I was growing up,
In your teen?
the Martin Luther King, peace march for civil rights was going on. There were riots going on in 1967 in Detroit. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1960 or 61, I don't remember exactly which year. So those were things that stand out in my mind during that period of time.
What were you doing, besides going to school, before you entered into the service, or before you were enlisted?
I worked some part-time jobs. I worked at a gas station, worked for my father for a while, and then I worked for a company installing eave trough and windows and putting up aluminum siding until I went in the military. We were raised Catholic. I was an altar boy. So those were the things that I did before I went in the military.
Did you know that you wanted to go into the military, or did you have any other dreams? Or?
Well, I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to go to the University of Michigan, and my parents did not have enough money to send me to college. So I knew the way to get to college was through the military, through the GI Bill. So I joined the military in March of '68 on a delayed entry program, and my dream was to go to college to become an architect, but then met I knew my wife. We went to school together our senior year, but did not date or hang out anywhere together.
So you didn't know her when you were actually in it?
We were just acquaintances basically. And then ended up going out with her a year before I got off of active duty, and ended up getting married. And after we got married, 5 days later, I was in Germany for 8 months, and then got off of active duty, and then I was out of the military for a while, and then I went into the reserve system in 1974.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you questions about your early days of service. You already told me, but was there any other reason besides going to the, getting the money from the GI Bill to go to college?
Well, I was very patriotic.
Okay.
And wanted to serve. It wasn't just college, but that was a way to do it. As it ended up, I made a career out of the military between active duty and reserves.
How did you enter, enlistment, right?
Yeah, I enlisted. Like I said, I went on a 90-day delayed entry program. Went to Detroit for my physical, and written tests and all that, and then finished school. And then when I graduated from high school 2 weeks later, went back down to Detroit again. Was Fort Wayne. Detroit was the induction center, and had to take another physical because it had been 3 months, and took some additional tests, and left at that time for Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I did my basic training. That was 2 weeks after I graduated from high school. I was at Fort Knox for basic training.
What did they make you do for basic training? Like lots of stuff?
Well, you learn about the military, you learn how to march, you learn marksmanship, first aid, all the things that you have to know as a basic infantry man in the military. A lot of marching, physical activity, rifle training, like I said, all those sorts of things. So,
So, like, was it hard? Did you think it was hard?
the first couple weeks were really hard, and I was in good shape. But find muscles that you didn't think you had, and I was in Echo 19.5. USACA Honor Company, which means that company did the best during that training cycle, so they get to have a yellow ribbon on their guidon. And our company, I forget how many we had, but they had tied the post record, and you have to win them consecutively to keep them on your company guidon, which is basically a flag that says Echo 19.5. And so, of course, they wanted to break the record, so we trained quite vigorously, for that award, and then, obviously for them to get us in shape and get us prepared, because most of the people that were there, a lot of them were draftees. We're going to go directly to infantry training in Vietnam after basic training. So it was 8 weeks of basic training.
Other than like the regular basic training that you had, did you have any other like specialized training?
Right, I went to, after I got out of basic training, I went to LPC school, which was Leadership Preparation course for 2 weeks at the first Army NCO Academy. And I had 8 weeks of Armor AIT. And when I graduated from AIT, which is what your military occupation is going to be, I was selected to go to First Army NCO Academy, which was a 13-week course, which back in those days they called it Shake and Bake School. And so I went to, I think I had like a month before before the NCO Academy. I had a 2-week leave and came back and started that course. And at the end of the course, they teach you, all kinds of things about forward observer, how to call for artillery and all those sorts of things, different stuff. And then at the end of the course, to graduate it, they had what they called military stakes, which was a 16-mile course that you ran in your fatigues and combat boots, stopping along the way to do take various tests as far as how to disassemble and assemble a weapon, and map reading and all those sorts of things.
How did you adapt to everything within like the military life, like switching from everyday life to like the barracks and everything that you had to
Well,
sleep in?
at first it was kind of hard because I'd never really been away from home, so it was my first time away from home. So you're homesick at first, but then you just get used to it and you make friends, and it just becomes part of your life. You never, completely get over being homesick or want to go home, but they keep you so busy that you really don't have time to think about it.
Was the climate like different from Kentucky to
Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah, June, July, and August is, they're similar, but it's usually quite a bit warmer down there, humidity-wise especially. So yeah, it was very hot down there. The barracks that we were in were old World War II barracks with no insulation, just wooden barracks, and very hot in the summer.
Were there a lot of you in there, like in one?
Yeah, I think our company, I think each barracks had about 50, 60 guys, I don't remember exactly, but there were 250 people, I think, roughly in our company.
What did you guys sleep on? Were they like bunk beds or?
Yeah, we had bunk beds.
Like, with that, where would you want to sleep on the bunk beds, you know?
I slept on the lower bunk.
Did you prefer that to the higher one?
Didn't really make any difference. The guy that we shared the same bunk beds wanted the upper one, so that was fine.
Okay, now what made you want to choose the Army and not like the Navy or?
Well, I thought about those other services and even the Marines, but Army, at that time, in order to get into the Air Force or the Navy, you would have to wait like a year and a half, and I would have been drafted anyway, so I wanted to just go ahead and go in the Army and choose the field that I wanted to go in.
So you didn't. Okay, you talked about going to Germany. What did you do in Germany?
I was a platoon sergeant. I was in a regular unit there. I was not an instructor for the first while I was there, but I was in tanks, trained. At that time, the Cold War was going on, and we were not that far from Czechoslovakia, so we were the first line of defense if the Russians decided to invade Germany. So that's what we trained for. And then the last 3 months I was there, they were going into the tank gunnery phase, and they knew that I was a armor instructor, taught tank gunnery, so I taught tank gunnery to the crews there in Germany, in Erlangen, Germany. I was actually B Company, 1st of the 35th Armor, 1st Armored Division, and that's what I did the last 3 months I was in Germany.
Being in Germany, were you like scared, or did you like?
No.
Because other people that we've talked to have said that like they didn't have time to be scared because they always had to be on their toes.
Right. We used to go. They would call us out in the middle of the night, sometimes on alerts, and we'd have to load up all our equipment on the tanks and be to a certain area within a half an hour. That was in case something happened. It was like a gathering area to go on from there to wherever they wanted us to move to block the enemy if the enemy was coming. But no, I was not scared. I mean, think about it. It was just something you did.
In Germany, like, did you see the differences between like the Republican governments and like the communist governments, like with West and East Germany?
Yeah. Well, I did not see East Germany, but I mean, I knew what the difference was, but didn't really think about politics other than, we were Americans and we were for democracy, and they were communists and weren't for democracy.
How about like any friendships that you formed during or on it, or did you not have time to make friends?
No, I had some friends. My roommate, although I never saw him again after I left Germany, was from Olympia, Washington. I had a lot of friends there.
So you got married to your grandma, and then you got shipped off to Germany for 8 months, right? So how did you like write letters back and forth?
Yes,
to them?
and every so often, in order to call home, we didn't have cell phones back in the day. We went down to the German post office and get an international line to call home. So it was like save up my money to pay for the call, and I think we're like 5 hours. I can't remember if we're 5 hours ahead here or behind one or the other. I never get it right, but I had to plan it so that it was still daytime here.
So that she would actually answer.
Well, yeah, so it wasn't in the middle of the night.
Okay, so when you left Germany, was the Cold War still going
Yes.
on? So you didn't stay there for the whole time?
No.
When you came home, you went into the reserves, right?
Well, I actually got out for 3 years and kind of regret it. I wish I would have stayed on active duty because I would have gone back to Fort Knox as a tank gunnery instructor, which was pretty much like a civilian job. And but I got out for 3 years and worked a couple different jobs, and then I got hired at Steelcase and stayed there for 32 years or whatever. And I worked in the factory and I was into truck driving and all that sort of thing.
So when you came back it wasn't like hard for you to readjust to
No.
regular life at all? You didn't have like any PTSD?
Well, I didn't have any, wasn't traumatized by war or anything.
Did you like see anybody that went through that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, I had lots of friends at the Army school that had been to Vietnam and talked about it and stuff, but all of them came through without, and of course they were all in armor, so they, none of them got hurt over there.
So you haven't made any contact with any of the people that you were with or anything during
Actually, talked to somebody who I took basic training with that was from Detroit quite a few years ago, and he had moved to Texas. He was from Bay City originally. We were like best friends in basic training. He was supposed to come up here and visit one Christmas, and he was going to call me, but you know how those things work.
Yeah.
People are busy, but no, really have not kept in contact with any people that I was on active duty with.
So you regret not staying in active duty?
Yes.
So, like, are you glad that you had the experiences that you did, and
Mhm.
more like, do you
Sure.
think they shaped
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Like, how did they affect your life? Like, did they teach you any life lessons, or like?
Well, you know, the military teaches you integrity and honesty and all those sorts of things, and teamwork and camaraderie. I think the hardest thing after I went in the reserves is when I got called up for Desert Storm on the way to your niece here. Yeah. Your aunt was 6 months old at the time, and
So it was
your
hard to
mom
leave.
and Aunt Missy were still home, so it was very hard to leave. I was only gone for 2 months, went to Fort Knox and taught truck driver training, refresher courses on 2-week refresher courses on truck driving to soldiers that had only been out of the military a year or less that were getting called back up for Desert Storm. So, you know, it affects you. You know.
Is there like, because I'm going to show this to my class, so like is there any things that like you would say to them about your experiences in there? Like would you encourage them to go into the service if they can?
Yeah, there's a lot of good things that you can learn in the military. There's a lot of good job opportunities, and you know, depends on what you want to do. If you want to be a SEAL or a Green Beret or that sort of thing, or if you want to go into a specialty in the Air Force like air traffic control or computers or photography or television or radio. They have all those different fields, all kinds of really good things that you can take up in the military. Engineering, you know, they have all those things. So it's a good way to go get on-the-job training. Plus, you can get schooling. You know, you can go to college and get a degree. So yeah, I would encourage people to go in the military.
So like along the lines of integrity and stuff, so that, is there anything else that it taught you being in the actual Army? Like, I guess I already asked this, but like life lessons, like Mr. Gavers always talks about how, like, we have a quote in our class, to look around and say to yourself, who got me all this and what price did they pay? And like all about integrity and how you do the right thing when nobody's looking. Like, what do you think that the Army taught you along those lines?
I just think it teaches you that freedom isn't free. And a lot of people gave the ultimate sacrifice for us that are here today so that we can do what we want to do. I mean, that's about it, and just appreciate that, you know, what makes you appreciate what you have at home when you're away from home for Christmas and Thanksgiving and everything. So, you know, I just urge everybody to really appreciate what they have in this country and realize that it didn't come for free, and that, you know, we're still always going to have to fight to defend it, because there's a lot of people out there that don't want us to have our freedom.
All right, Grandpa. Well, thank you for your
You're welcome.
service.